This needs to be examined honestly, without the sanitizing that a topic this specific sometimes receives, the softening of it into something more comfortable than it actually is. Because the experience being described here is real, it is common among people who have been intimate with avoidance, and the failure to examine it directly leaves people without the understanding they need to make clear decisions about what they are experiencing and why. The addiction is real, not metaphorically real, not the casual use of a strong word to describe a strong preference. Real in the specific neurological, behavioral sense of a pattern that produces compulsive return despite negative consequences, that generates a craving that ordinary satisfaction does not resolve, that creates a relationship with an experience that looks, from the outside and often from the inside, like a choice being made freely, but that is operating with a force that exceeds what free choice typically feels like. Understanding why requires honesty about several things simultaneously, about the avoidant's specific way of being present in physical intimacy, about what the intermittent reinforcement of the broader relationship does to the nervous system, about the specific psychological dynamic that makes the physical intimacy with an avoidant feel like the answer to a question that nothing else in the relationship is answering, and about what the addiction is actually about, which is not, at its deepest level, about the sex itself. The avoidant in physical intimacy is often paradoxically more present than they are anywhere else in the relationship. This is the central, generating fact from which most of what follows flows. The person who maintains careful emotional distance in the ordinary texture of daily connection, who manages the intimacy pressure, who calibrates the warmth, who retreats from the conversations that go too close to the interior, can be, in physical intimacy, startlingly, completely there. Not always, not every avoidant, and not every encounter, but with a frequency and a consistency that is distinct from their presence elsewhere in the relationship. The defenses that operate in emotional intimacy, the management, the calibration, the careful maintenance of the distance that keeps genuine closeness at a survivable level, do not always transfer to physical intimacy with the same efficiency. Physical intimacy operates through different channels. It bypasses, at least partially, the cognitive and verbal self-protective systems that the avoidance management primarily uses. It reaches the body directly, and the body, less amenable to the management than the mind, can be more honestly present than the mind permits. The result is that sex with the avoidant can feel like the only place in the relationship where the real version of them is fully accessible, where the walls are sufficiently down that something genuine is happening, where the feeling of genuine closeness, the specific, visceral, this person is actually here with me experience, is present in a way that the rest of the relationship does not reliably provide. This creates the first component of the addiction. The intermittent reinforcement dynamic, which has been shaping the broader relationship throughout, intensifies in the context of physical intimacy because the stakes of the reinforcement are higher. Intermittent reinforcement, the pattern in which reward arrives unpredictably, sometimes and not others, in a ratio that cannot be predicted or controlled, is the most powerful reinforcement schedule available for producing compulsive behavior. It is more powerful than consistent reward, more powerful than consistent non-reward. The unpredictability is itself the mechanism. The nervous system, unable to predict when the reward will arrive, cannot regulate against the anticipation of it. The anticipation becomes continuous, and continuous anticipation in the presence of occasional, genuine, deeply felt reward produces a relationship with the reward source that has the specific, recognizable quality of compulsion. The avoidance physical presence, when it is present in the full and genuine and defenses down way that it occasionally is a profound reward, not simply the pleasure of the physical experience, though that is real, but the specific, rare, emotionally significant experience of genuine contact with someone who is otherwise not fully accessible. The closeness that the rest of the relationship withholds arriving in these moments in its most direct and undeniable form. the person who is usually partly absent being for the duration of this entirely there. That is not a small thing. It is, for someone who has been living in the partial absence of a person they deeply care for, an experience of something close to profound relief, the ending of a hunger that has been present throughout the relationship's emotional distance. The arrival of the thing that has been theoretically available but practically withheld finding its way through, finally, completely, in a form that the body receives directly and that bypasses the management that has been preventing it everywhere else, and then the management returns. The distance reasserts. The emotional walls rebuild with their usual efficiency. The person who was just completely there becomes again partially absent. And the nervous system, which just received the profound reward of genuine contact, begins immediately, involuntarily, below the level of conscious decision, orientating toward the next arrival of that reward, toward the next moment of genuine contact, toward the next time the walls come down. The second component is the specific way physical intimacy becomes enrolled in the broader relationship's hope. For someone who loves an avoidant and is living in the relational middle ground of someone who is neither fully chosen nor fully released, the moments of genuine physical intimacy carry a weight that extends beyond the moments themselves. They become evidence. The avoidant who is distant and emotionally unavailable in the ordinary texture of the relationship, but who is genuinely fully present in physical intimacy, is providing, in those moments, the most direct available confirmation that the connection is real, that the investment is justified, that the version of them that the intimacy reveals, present, open, genuinely there, is the real version, and the distance elsewhere is the fear rather than the truth. This reading is not entirely wrong. The physical presence often is more authentic than the emotional management. The person accessible in those moments often is closer to the real interior than the presented version, but the reading is also being enrolled in the service of the hope in a way that distorts its implications, because the authentic presence in physical intimacy does not constitute the capacity for the sustained, expressed, consistently demonstrated connection that the relationship needs. The walls that come down in those moments come back up. The genuine contact that is real in those windows does not carry over into the remainder of the relational experience. The evidence the moments provide is real, but it is evidence of the feeling, not of the capacity to sustain the expression of it. The hoping, which needs evidence to remain viable, uses the physical intimacy as its primary supply. Every genuine encounter is a reason to continue. Every moment of real presence is confirmation that what the hoping is reaching for is there, is real, is worth waiting for. The physical intimacy keeps the hope alive in the specific, potent, visceral way that words and gestures cannot. And the keeping alive of the hope is, in part, what makes the letting go of the physical intimacy feel so impossible. Because letting go of the intimacy means letting go of the hope's primary evidence. And letting go of the hope means confronting the loss that the hope has been, throughout the relationship, successfully preventing. The third component is the neurochemical reality of physical intimacy itself, which does not operate in isolation from the psychological context, but is significantly amplified by it. The bonding hormones released in physical intimacy, oxytocin most prominently, are not neutrally distributed. They attach to the person present in the moments of their release with a specificity that the abstract understanding of their function does not fully prepare anyone for. The attachment that physical intimacy creates is real at the biological level. It is not chosen. It does not respond readily to the rational understanding that the relationship is not adequately meeting your needs. It simply binds, repeatedly, with the accumulated force of every encounter to the specific person whose presence has coincided with its release. In a relationship where the emotional intimacy is insufficient, where the need for genuine connection is chronically partially met, the physical intimacy takes on the additional burden of carrying the bonding that the emotional connection is not fully providing. The oxytocin released in the physical encounter is working against a background of relational hunger that makes its bonding effect more intense, not less. The body is doing what the relationship is not doing, creating and recreating the felt sense of connection, of belonging, of this person is mine and I am theirs, with a reliability that the rest of the relationship does not match. And the body does not easily distinguish between a bond that is being adequately reciprocated and one that is not. It binds with equal force regardless of the return. The bonding is not contingent on the adequacy of the relationship. It is contingent on the presence of the person in the moments of intimacy. And the presence in those moments is real, however insufficient it is in all the other moments that constitute the majority of the relationship's actual life. The why you can't let go is this: not weakness, not pathology, not a failure of will or clarity or self-respect. The inability to let go of the physical connection with an avoidant is the entirely predictable consequence of several powerful forces operating simultaneously. The intermittent reinforcement of the broader dynamic, the specific psychological significance of the moments of genuine contact, the enrollment of the intimacy in the hope's evidence gathering, and the real biological bonding that the physical intimacy creates regardless of the adequacy of everything surrounding it. The addiction is not to the sex itself, it is to the closeness that the sex occasionally, genuinely delivers, to the version of the avoidant that the sex sometimes makes available, to the profound, hunger-ending, walls-down quality of being genuinely close to someone who is otherwise not fully accessible, to the confirmation in the body and in the feeling that the connection is real and the investment is justified and the person you have been reaching for is actually, in these moments, reachable. The addiction makes complete sense, given the dynamic, given the reinforcement schedule, given the specific quality of what the physical intimacy provides that the rest of the relationship does not. The compulsive return makes sense. You are not broken for experiencing it. You are a person whose nervous system has been shaped by a specific relational pattern into a specific response that has the quality of compulsion because the forces producing it are genuinely compulsive in their operation. Understanding this does not make the letting go easy. It does not dissolve the bonding or neutralize the reinforcement or make the hunger that the physical intimacy has been partially feeding disappear. What it does is provide the honest framework for understanding what is actually happening, which is the necessary foundation for making any genuinely free decision about what to do next. The question worth sitting with is not whether the physical connection was real. It was. The question is whether the moments of genuine closeness that the physical intimacy provided are sufficient for the life you are trying to build. Whether the walls down in those moments compensates for the walls up in all the others. Whether the hunger that the intimacy temporarily feeds is actually being fed in the sense of being genuinely, sustainably addressed, or whether it is being managed just sufficiently to prevent you from seeking the full nourishment you deserve somewhere else. The intimacy was real. The connection in those moments was real. And the hunger that made those moments feel like everything, that hunger is also real. And it deserves more than the intermittent, partial, walls back up afterwards answer the avoidance physical presence provides. It deserves the full answer. The consistent, walls down, genuinely there in all the moments answer, and that answer, the complete version of it, was never quite what the avoidant was able to give.